You can't keep me cooped up in here, okay? I am a peacock. You gotta let me fly.
Hello there, and welcome to the Poppycock podcast, where the topics don't matter and I'm not an expert. Today I'm joined once again by my wife's dog, Roxy, because we own her and she can't leave the house. She's, not 18. She's not ready to go off to college yet. Actually, by dog years, she's almost 7. So, look at you, you old bag of bones. Right before I started recording, she farted so loud I thought it was like something from outside or a video had started playing because it was comedically fart sounding. And it was gross. It was real gross. Anyway, let's talk about something that is sort of a weird mishmash of things. I know that when you talk about film, inevitably you run into the guy or gal who movies are their shtick, and they're here to tell you why Christopher Nolan is just the best thing that's ever happened to screens since we started adding, talkies where you could hear the people speak during the film. And I'm not one of those people normally. I will say that Interstellar is mind-blowingly good. I will say that Inception really did change the game of movies in the early 2000s. I'll say that his Batman movies are well-made movies. Again, not great Batman movies, but they are good movies, and I'm okay with that. But in this trying time when you can drive by a movie theater and see it completely empty, devoid of love and life, it is a little bit refreshing to know that, the granddaddy of cinema right now is riding in on his white horse that is the movie Tenet to reclaim everything. And in case you aren't in the know, Chris Nolan has put together a movie starring a guy who I just knew as one of the main characters from HBO's Ballers. Turns out he's Denzel Washington's son, and that's why he's such a great actor. I mean, this dude, I'm really stoked just to see him in it alone. But it looks like they're manipulating time, and it flows backwards and forwards. It's pretty trippy. It looks like a spiritual successor to Inception, except instead of going into dreams, you're messing with the flow of time and death. And it's pretty wild, and the visuals are insane, and the music is going to be crazy. It's one of the first movies that Hans Zimmer isn't doing. It's the guy who did the sound for Black Panther, who won an award for that. So Hans Zimmer was busy making the score for Dune. If he was making a Doom movie, we need to have an intervention with Hans Zimmer. That's a waste of his talents. They've yet to make a good one. But I watched the newest trailer, and I couldn't help but think that it could be seen as pretentious during any other time, but right now, it was almost like those old westerns where the town is under the rule of some horrible gang and they've got everyone at gunpoint and they're shaking them down for their money, and you hear the trotting of the man on the white horse as he's riding into town. And it was just like, from the guy who made Dunkirk, Interstellar, these other movies you've loved, Inception, he made the Batman movies, and it starts listing all of his, cinematic achievements. It's like, Tenet, and it shows, this incredible trailer, beautiful visuals, insane effects, cool sound design. It's the whole 9 yards as far as filmmaking is concerned. And then as the music is climactically building, what does it say? Coming to theaters, which in any other version of our reality would be like, well, duh, it's a big budget movie. But right now, movies are being delayed an entire year, or they're being released digitally right now, just so they can recoup some money, because Hollywood, like everywhere else in the world, has kind of run to a complete standstill. People aren't working, they aren't making movies, they aren't making TV shows. Right now, the art of cinema is dead, for better or for worse. It's comatose. And here's Chris Nolan, trotting up on his horse, letting you know, hey, screw you, Corona. This movie's coming out, and I'm not moving it. I'm here, and so is film, and we ain't going anywhere. And I think it might have made me turn the corner from Christopher Nolan fans are insufferable to, you know what, he is a pretty cool guy. I mean, he's kind of coming in, leading the charge, saying, no, movies will come back, life will be normal again, and you are going to love my movie, and you are going to hate the people who won't stop talking about it, because that is the way the world works. What's not exciting about that? Normalcy coming back again. It's something we all crave right now. And I can't believe it because I'm watching this trailer and I can tell that the main character is trying to stop something bad from happening and that he can either mess with time or he's aware that time can be messed with and be slightly less affected. And that's pretty much all I know about it. And yet the trailer for it has been better than most of the movies I've watched in the last 2 years. It's kind of bananas. It's just to think that we've been deceived by trailers. The Suicide Squad trailers looked pretty fun, and then they handed the movie over partway through production to some trailer production people. They're like, they liked the trailers, so just make the whole movie a trailer, and it was a horrible movie. And I don't blame David Ayer for that. I blame Warner Brothers and that commercial editing company. They were like, yeah, edit a whole movie. And they were like, cool, we'll just put a bunch of ridiculous filters over everything, and it'll be nonsense. Anyway, I don't want to get started up on that. David Ayer was robbed. Even if it was a bad movie he was going to make, he deserved to get to make it 100%. I think they've set a precedent. If Snyder gets a redo because his story was completely butchered, Ayer deserves the same thing because his was supposed to tie in with Parademons and Darkseid, all kinds of stuff. I'm getting distracted. Just let filmmakers make their movies, and if they suck, they suck, and if they don't, they don't. Stop screwing around with it. And in this time, when we miss film, when I would almost be happy to go and see another bad movie just to be like, oh, that movie sucked, let's go get some pizza, and actually go to an open pizza place and sit down and hear people's kids being loud and annoying next to me and think in my head, wow, these kids are loud and annoying. I wish I could punch them. I used to hate that, and now I miss it. And it just feels like it's never going to get normal. But here's Christopher Nolan letting you know that, hey, it's going to get normal again. And if nothing else, you're going to have a crazy movie to be confused by. And I think that's also a weird thing that the Nolans like to do, because they like to do things that are tricky. And I point to up until Tenet, I have said that Jonathan Nolan is the more talented of the Nolans, because Interstellar, which is my favorite Nolan movie, was pretty much written and taken care of by Jonathan Nolan, and Chris Nolan came in and did some rewrites in the final script phase when this had been being worked on by the actual scientist who came up with all the science behind it. It's the reason we have our first, scientifically speaking anyway, realistic look at what a black hole would look like up close if you weren't going to get, destroyed by it. I mean, it's pretty wild that this guy, I believe his name was Kip, might have been Kip Thorne, I might be getting it confused, but the guy who made it, the scientist worked with Jonathan Nolan. They wrote the script. They're like, hey, Chris Nolan, do you want to work on this? You're a big name. And he was like, yeah, what if we made 2001: A Space Odyssey, but it was good? And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say it. 2001: A Space Odyssey, not a great movie. I understand that it was an incredible breakthrough for its time. I think it did a lot of creative things, but I think Kubrick kind of got up his own ass a little bit, And there's nothing wrong with that. Hey, you're in a creative medium and you're on top of the world and you're a psychopath, that's going to happen. Still a good movie, but it's not... It's one of those movies you're like, wow, that was a hard movie to make, I bet. That's a really clever. They did a good job making that, but you don't really want to watch it all the time, It's just... That's the way it is. And Interstellar, to me, is the more palatable version of that, because it does have a lot of parallels in it with time and exploration of space and the way things happen. And obviously they took ideas from the monolith and the design of the robots. But up until Tenet was announced and more of it was shown, I was completely unaware of the fact that Chris Nolan had this caliber of cool in him. Because, again, I wasn't really wooed over by the Nolan films of the Batman era. And I think Westworld has been a pretty shining light as far as what Jonathan Nolan and his wife Lisa Joy can accomplish. I mean, season 1, phenomenal. I would argue it's one of the best seasons of TV shows out there in general. It's pretty darn great. And then what happens next afterwards? They hit us with season 2, a little bit more convoluted. I know a lot of people were confused by it. There was a lot of multiple timelines going on. There was all kinds of, tricky stuff happening. So audiences were like, this was hard to understand, which kind of hurt the third season because, A, they couldn't just put it in the Wild West, which you can recreate the Wild West pretty easily. But they set it in a sort of cyberpunk future, which means they had to spend a lot of money making normal worlds look futuristic. So they had less episodes to let their season span out over, and they were trying to make it more accessible to people. And I think they kind of dumbed it down and took some of the edge off of it. I mean, it's still a great show. I mean, for those of us itching to get their hands on Cyberpunk 2077, it is the best thing you can watch in order to scratch that itch right now. That and maybe Upgrade, which we'll get back to in a little bit. But it's been a shining light showing that when he steps out of his brother's shadow, he can really accomplish a lot. Him and his wife are a powerhouse team, and they have a great cast, solid writers, incredible actors, and it's truly an impressive feat of what you can accomplish with TV. I would say that it's up there competing against the miniseries of Watchmen as far as just great seasons. And of course, again, the third season sort of dipped a little bit in quality, but the great thing is that a bad performer in that show or a bad episode or a bad season is still 10 times better than shows you'll get on just about any other channel. So bad for Westworld is still great by everyone else's comparison. The same way that you can look at a Nolan film and say that a bad Christopher Nolan film is still probably going to be more technically proficient than most other people's movies. The Prestige, another great movie he made. Big fan of it. A little, again, it does get a little weird at points, but it's magicians and trickery, and it's awesome, you know? And it's one of those great movies where you watch it, you get the twist, and then you get to rewatch it, and you have so much more context, and it makes more sense, and you pick up on more things. I appreciate that. That's quality filmmaking, or at least an aspect of it. Now, it's with him stepping up with Tenet and with his brother sort of having a dip in quality for a season, they seem a little bit more neck and neck for me. But I think it's pretty wild that we live in a world where we have these incredible secrets and surprises in TV shows and in movies where we don't know what to expect. We have a basic idea of the premise. We know some of the people that are cast. Sometimes we don't even know the full breadth of that character's role or that actor's number of roles in a movie or a TV show. And that I think that the Nolan family is sort of single-handedly keeping hope in movies and TV shows alive right now, especially with that trailer where it was like, hey, movies are coming back, life is coming back, pizza will come back, going to the park will come back, shopping without looking like you're, like a bandit from the Wild West with a bandana on your face. That's going to come back. It's going to be normal again. And even if it takes a while, this is going to be a first step in the right direction, and we're going to give you a great movie to distract you with. And that's rad, It's something to be stoked about. I don't know. Again, I'll drop the topic, but it's pretty cool that the sort of pretentious topic of film where you're like, we get it, Christopher Nolan, good filmmaker, I just want to go watch an Avengers movie. There are people that are like that out there in the world who just want their next Fast and Furious movie, and that's fine. I love the Fast and Furious movies. They're mindless and they're fun, and I have no problem with them, except for the fact that they told us that Han is alive, and then I have to wait a whole another year to figure out how. So that's infuriating, but...
My apologies. I couldn't hear what you said.
I genuinely don't know how the hell that robot thought I was talking to it. Anyway, it's interesting that such a figure who is held in high prestige by mostly annoying, pretentious film geeks is coming in, and he's kind of legitimately becoming like a hero for people who just like life. And I admit I did sort of come up with a contrived way to say that we should talk about Jonathan Nolan as well, because he's really talented. He's been behind the scenes on a lot of the best Nolan films and Nolan accomplishments. And Westworld is, again, amazing, and you should check it out. It's awesome. It's kind of weird seeing Prince Caspian be a total dick. I get that he's an actor and he plays multiple roles, but that was my first introduction to the character. So, it was weird. And Jimmy Simpson kills it. Ed Harris is amazing. I have a hard time pointing to anyone in the cast that is even lukewarm meh. They're all stellar. It even got me better acquainted with the lost Hemsworth brother, who should be playing Wolverine. Short, stocky, he's got the right build, he's got the right personality, he's a tough action guy, he's got a great acting range. Come on, Disney, hire him. Hire Hemsworth. You've already done it once. But yeah, springboarding back to how Westworld is one of the best things to keep you tied over until 2077 Cyberpunk game releases alongside, arguably, Upgrade. fans of the movie Upgrade have pretty good news because they just announced that they are making a sequel television series to the movie Upgrade. And if you missed Upgrade, if you saw the Venom movie but you wanted it to be good, that's what this would be. But it's set in a sci-fi world. A guy and his wife are going. The guy likes to repair old cars. It's set in the future where people have a lot of augments and stuff, and his wife is, she's a good gal, but she's a little bit more in touch with the cybernetic stuff. And he just repaired a car for a very wealthy, sort of almost like a Mark Zuckerberg type character. And this guy says, cool, thanks for fixing up this classic car. People don't know how to work on it anymore. Have a great day. And their self-driving car that they drive home in ends up taking them in the wrong direction, getting into an accident, and then they're attacked by a bunch of people who kill his wife in front of him and paralyze the main character. And the guy whose car he just repaired says, well, we have this experimental thing. We're not allowed to put it in people. It's a chip, but it'll give you control of your body again. And he figures out that this thing has an AI in it, and he starts using the AI and his newfound connection to the internet and all this like cybernetic stuff as a way to track down the killers that attacked his wife and exact his vengeance on them in a series of pretty wild action scenes. It's very, very well shot. Very cool. Very awesome premise. Anyway, it is not a happy-go-lucky movie. There's some pretty depressing parts in it. And Logan Marshall Green is the main character in it. And I don't know if he's going to be returning for the series or if it's going to be set in that world and just deal with more things in and around that area, sort of like the Limitless TV series. It had cameo appearances once or twice in the first season of Bradley Cooper, but it was focused on a totally different person. However, it was built off of the backbone of the movie that had come out. And I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but if they have even a handful of the same people behind it, I think probably one of the big selling points was it's a very cool concept. It's a really awesome world, and they were able to shoot these incredible scenes with technology that they had sort of made on the cheap that worked really well, made the camera follow this guy perfectly, so the camera looks like it's almost attached to this guy while he's moving, so he can dodge and the whole room moves around it, almost like you're seeing from the perspective of this augmented chip in his back. It's a very cool effect. And the world does have a lot of potential to be explored because it is sort of like a lot of sci-fi and cyberpunk stories. It's a sort of caricature of aspects of our own real-world situations. So it'll be very interesting to see how they, explore that, how they make topics that we are dealing with a little bit more palatable by making them just different enough that you don't feel awkward talking about it, but similar enough that you might learn something more about what you're talking about. I did a whole episode about how cyberpunk isn't just Keanu Reeves and neon lights, and I think that this is a great example of how you can still have neon lights. It's definitely part of it, but it has a much darker conversation that it wants you to have about technology and how invasive it is and what it can do to us, and also about vengeance and all kinds of things about humanity. It's very cool. And if you've got an itch for a sort of darker franchise, if you want to see something that is one of the most violent movies I've seen. At one point, I don't remember what he uses, but the character, I think, gets like a large blade, puts it in a guy's mouth while he's behind him, and pulls back like he's on the rower, and takes the guy's head off, like Pac-Man, like through the center where his jaw would be. And that's not even the craziest, most brutal thing you watch happen. And it's got some dark comedy to it as well, because the character is like, I need to fight this guy, and the machine is like, I have defense subroutines. I can fight him. Give me control of your body. He's like, yes, I give you control. And all of a sudden, it's just this guy's head watching in horror as his like limbs are, kung paoing their way through a gang, breaking limbs, smashing bottles over people's heads. And there's also some really clever choreography because he can't move his head. So if a guy swings to punch him in the head, then the body has to use his hand to move the guy's head out of the way. Or it's weird. It's that mesh of like really dark, I don't want to say gritty, but it's like a very textured and weird world that could be oppressive and very sad to watch, but it's got this weird sense of humor and like dark, morbid way of laughing at things and getting through things. And it makes it really enjoyable. Unlike, there are some movies that are just so sad and depressing. Like, God, if I wanted to be sad, I'd look at my bank account statements. I mean, I'm here to watch a movie, all right? Give me something to laugh about. Give me something cool to watch. And this offers all of that with enough substance that you feel like you actually kind of got a little bit of a lesson out of it. So it's really great news if you're a fan of the TV show to hear that they're making more, that they're going to do something with it. Because I've wondered for a long time why they didn't go on and make like a sequel movie to it. And, movies it's difficult to get the right script, right director, right writers, effects people, stunt people, studio, all that jazz. And all that has to fall in a time when the economy is cool with it, when a studio needs it, when they have the openings, when the actor has the opening. There's a lot of moving parts, and probably a ton that I didn't even touch on, or that I'm not even aware of. So it can be difficult to sort of front load or convince a studio to put a lot of effort in making your movie happen, especially a sequel. However, this studio and the people behind it have a tendency to come in under budget or come in with such a small budgetary request that even if they hit it or if they go slightly over, it's still wildly more affordable than most conventional movies and TV shows. So if they're able to sort of take that guerrilla style of shooting and coming up with really cool ways to make things look futuristic and yet relatable, all on budget, that's a perfect thing for people to want to watch, because I think we're going to hit another uptick, especially with Cyberpunk 2077 come out. I wouldn't be surprised if, as Cyberpunk becomes a topic in a genre that everyone is discussing again and everyone's excited about, we could very much see an uptick in TV shows and movies and comic books and video games, all of that sort of circulating around it as it becomes a topic that starts sort of taking precedence in the zeitgeist of, pop culture all over again. And I'm totally down with that, because whether other people talk about it or not, I always love sci-fi and cyberpunk. Again, it's just a cool way to examine things in your world in a more comfortable and palatable way. Also, it's super rad to see people fight robots. I mean, I'm a simple man, just trying to make his way in the universe. Sometimes I want to watch robots and cyborgs fight each other and have a conversation about police brutality and corporate takeover and our data usage and how it's basically criminal, But at the same time, I want a leading man deliver a one-liner and smile at the camera and make me think, man, I gotta go to the gym. My biceps cannot hold up to that. And I'm gonna finish all this off with a conversation going back to, of all things, Community. Now, Community is a television series that my good friend Parker had told me to check out, and the way he described it, I was like, that doesn't sound entertaining at all. It sounds ridiculous, honestly. And I wish I had checked it out earlier. It was originally on like Hulu, and honestly, if you're paying for Hulu, you're just getting scammed, because that's a horrible service, and they still make you have commercials, and their content isn't even all that great. But now Community is on Netflix, so I had a chance to watch it. And both fortunately and unfortunately, my wife fell in love with it as well, which meant I couldn't watch new episodes without her around. And I don't know if you know this, but when someone works at a hospital, when they get home after work, they oftentimes just want to collapse into like a ball of human soup and just melt into the bed and sleep for as long as they have time for. Not a lot of time to watch TV. It's a very minuscule problem to have, but it is a bummer sitting around when you have a little bit of free time as a college student over the summer when the world is in lockdown, and you're like, I would kind of like to watch some TV and think about something else. But there's an episode that's very much based on like weird 80s sci-fi, and it's the idea that an app gets released into like beta tested on the school campus and community, and people are trying to use it, and it's like a Facebook analogy, but it's called Meow Meow Beans. I assume there's some joke behind it, but I didn't get it. As far as I can tell, it's just to differentiate itself, so they can't be like, it's Bookface, and Facebook will get mad. But basically, you rate people, and the more stars you have out of 5, or, cat faces, Meow Meow Beans, I guess, technically, the more Meow Meow Beans you have, the higher your overall cumulative score, and the scores of the people who are already rated high, they carry more weight. So if like 5 ones say that you're a 5, you might end up as a 3, but if 1 5 says you're a 4, you'll get bumped up all the way up to almost a 4, just with the one person. And it creates this bizarre hierarchy about class and how the hierarchy of people being in charge, and becomes this dystopian future. And first of all, it's hilarious. It's ridiculous, just like most episodes of Community. It is 100% worth watching just for a laugh. I can't think of a single... Never mind. There's a claymation episode, and I don't do claymation, so I've not seen that episode. And there's an episode with puppets where they also sing. It was very Pahapahui Island-esque, and I did not enjoy that. Those are the only two that have ever stuck out to me. I even like the Christmas musical episode, because Annie does this weird, like, sexy dance, and it's equal parts hilarious and arousing. And Actually, I think it made me like Christmas a little bit more too. Not a big fan of it usually, but hey, I'm coming around to it now. All it took was someone dancing around in a sexy Santa costume. Who would have thunk? But anyway, back to the episode in question of season 5. It's like fighting down. You're toppling the corporation that's taking you down. You're fighting the system. You're rebelling against it, and it's all like a very 80s, like a satin robe looking type of thing that people wear, and then the lower classes have to wear like gray jumpsuits, and the upper class wear all white robes and stuff. It's ridiculous. It's hilarious, and everyone's wearing those things that like UPS delivery people have, where it's like their phone is on their wrist, so they can type in on it, and that way people can always tell how many meow meow beans you are to see how you fall in the overall class hierarchy. I am convinced to this day that while yes, it's a funny conversation about social media invasion and class and how people are nice to be liked more, but in reality they're just passive aggressive and terrible, and all these other things, I'm convinced it was genuinely just designed so they could have this ridiculous outfit on Joel McHale to show off his chest and his arms, because good God, I have not hated my own body that much in a very long time. That is just unfair. I like to think that, he hasn't been on TV for a while. Maybe, especially during the pandemic, his body is falling apart a little bit. Maybe he looks more like a normal guy. I know he's tall. I know he's got some bicep definition still. But maybe it's not quite to the level that it was. Because it genuinely made me want to go puke. I was so mad. Like, I get it. You're tall. Genetics have played you some favors. The only thing I really have going is that his hairline and, his hairstyles and his clothing choices for the first few seasons of Community were pretty much awful. But then he started slowly evolving into, like, borderline superhero physique for a comedic show on TV. At one point on, like, a Yahoo streaming website. Why put that much effort into it unless you just want me to hate my body? So, Joel McHale, if you listen to this podcast, give me your workout routine and some diet stuff. Or stop going to the gym. You won, alright, dude? Give someone else a chance. Actually, gyms are still closed, so it's just push-ups and sit-ups at home, which is difficult when you have a dog, because it'll try and bite your ear and play with you while you do push-ups. Funzos. Anyway, this has been a very Nolan and cyberpunk-centric episode of the Poppycock podcast. I hope you had fun, hope it was informative, and if nothing else, you can laugh at how bad it was, or you can enjoy it because it just touched your heart in a special, special way. As a reminder, we are currently working on adapting a short story I cooked up a few months back called A Cold Night in Gotham, and it is a story. It opens up on a scene, but the majority of it is two police officers in the back of an armored car that aren't normally charged with transporting prisoners, so they're not used to having this weird power of being there. They're there to take down the bad guys and lock them up, send them on their way, but now they're dealing with someone who's going to a mental institution, and he's the Joker. He does bad things. He's not a likable person, and he's just committed some pretty horrible crimes, and they're having a moral discussion of whether or not it is more ethical to kill him right then and there in order to save the future of like people that he would attack, but you've also crossed your own moral code, or is it better to follow your own moral codes and never waver from them, knowing that you're basically signing people up to suffer in the future? It was the first real short story I fully did at that way. It's on the website, jibjab.video.blog if you want to check it out. It's called A Cold Night in Gotham, and I'm going to be voicing a lot of the characters. My brother-in-law Adam is going to be Batman and a few other characters. I've got some more people who I've worked with in the past who are going to voice some like detectives and stuff like that. So it'll be pretty interesting. I'm not a voice actor. I'm barely a podcaster. Some would argue I'm not even human. And here I am doing all that, working on some like the background noises, like, you know, someone walking on the stairs, the creaking of the wood, sound of boots walking, sound of a car going. I'm recording all of that myself for real. The only thing I'm not recording is if there are any like guns or Batmobiles, you know. I don't have a Batmobile or a gun, except for these sick biceps. Now I'm just thinking about Joel McHale again. God. Anyway, we're going to put that up as an episode sometime in the future whenever we get it done. I'm only just now getting some of the stuff to do it, so it's only just now in the audio versions. But if you want to read it, feel free to check it on the website. We'll warn you when the next episode of the podcast is going to be that audio drama, sort of audiobook style version where you can just listen and kind of go on a nice little adventure. I'm pretty excited for it. It's something I've never done before, and it might suck, but with every time I try something new, I might get a little bit better at it. So, if nothing else, it'll give you something to eat up some of your quarantine time and try something new. You can point it to your friends and be like, look how bad this was, or you can share it and be like, look, he's the Christopher Nolan of voice acting. Actually, I think that would probably just be like Troy Baker or Nolan North, which would be pretty rad to be on that level someday. Anyway, thank you again for listening to the Poppycock podcast. We're excited to have you, excited to make more stuff for you. Stay sane out there, all right? It's going to get normal, or as close to normal as life ever was. See you around.
Hey guys, thanks for eating all the macaroni.
Shut up, Leonard. Nobody even knows what you're talking about.
I did eat all the macaroni. It's messed up that he knows.